I woke up to silence. Not the peaceful kind, the kind that feels wrong the second your eyes open. The kind that tells you something in the room has shifted before your brain can even catch up. The TV was still on, throwing that pale blue light across the living room. One of my dogs was curled up against my leg, warm and heavy. My neck ached, my mouth was dry, and for half a second I was just confused, trying to figure out why I was on the couch at dawn, with a blanket twisted around me. Then I turned my head. My sister was asleep on the other end of the couch, curled toward the armrest, hair a mess, one hand tucked under her cheek, like she'd just drifted off for a minute and never meant to stay. And the second I saw her, I knew. Not because anything had happened, because nothing had happened. Because this was normal, familiar, harmless. The kind of thing that had happened 100 times over the course of our lives, without meaning anything at all. And somehow, the moment I heard my wife moving around upstairs, I knew this was about to become something ugly. By the time my sister left that morning, the house felt like it was holding its breath. And then my wife looked at me and said, very calmly, very coldly, "Do you seriously not understand how inappropriate that was?" I stared at her. At first, I honestly thought I'd misheard her, because there are some accusations that don't just make you angry. They insult you. They reach into something innocent and make it feel dirty. And once that happens, it's hard to come back from. Wednesday nights had always been ours. Not mine and my wife's. Mine and my sister's. That sounds worse than it is, which is exactly the problem. Every 2 or 3 weeks, usually on a Wednesday, my sister came over. It was simple, predictable, one of the best parts of my month. We'd order pizza, set up in the living room, pick a game, and just exist around each other, the way siblings sometimes can when the relationship is easy. No performance, no effort, no pressure to make conversation every second. Just jokes, trash talk, stories, catching up, yelling at a screen, and my dogs wandering in and out like they owned the place. It had become a ritual without us ever really deciding it would. Life gets busy when you're in your 30s. Everyone has jobs, routines, marriages, errands, bills. Weeks disappear, months disappear, and if you're not careful, the people you love slowly become people you text instead of people you actually see. So I held on to Wednesday nights. Not desperately, just gratefully. My sister and I had always been close, not in some weird over-the-top way. We just genuinely liked each other. When we were kids, we fought like kids fight, over stupid things, over space, over who got the remote, over who got blamed for what. But underneath all of that, there was always this easy loyalty. She was 2 years older than me, which meant when we were little, she seemed impossibly cool. She had the better room, the better TV, the better music. I used to sit on the floor in her room and watch whatever she was watching, just because she had the screen, and I wanted to be where the action was. Later, when life got harder in the ways life does, that closeness stuck. So when we became adults and found a rhythm again, I loved it. My wife knew about it. Of course she knew about it. It wasn't hidden. It wasn't secretive. I'd tell her when my sister was coming over. Sometimes she'd say hi, chat for a minute, then go do her own thing. We'd invited her to join us more than once. "Come play," I'd say. My sister would grin and hold up a controller. "We can carry you." My wife would roll her eyes. Hard pass. It wasn't hostile. She just wasn't interested. Video games weren't her thing. Sitting around watching us play definitely wasn't her thing. So she'd head upstairs or watch something else, or just enjoy having us out of her way. That was our normal. And normal is dangerous, because once something feels normal enough, you stop imagining it could ever be misunderstood. That Wednesday started like every other one. I got off work tired, but in a good mood. The house had that late evening quiet to it, the kind that settles in after dinner when everything slows down. My dogs knew something was up the second I grabbed the extra drinks from the fridge. They started pacing around the kitchen, tails thumping, because guests meant excitement and dropped food and more people to beg from. My sister texted me that she was on the way. I ordered pizza. When she got there, she came in carrying that same energy she always did, like she'd already been mid-conversation before she even opened the door. "You better not have ordered mushrooms." "I'm not a psychopath," I said. She bent down to pet the dogs. "You hear that? Your uncle loves you." I laughed. "That's not how that works." She stood up. "In this house, it is." My wife was in the kitchen for a minute while we got settled. She said hi, my sister said hi back. Nothing weird, nothing tense, nothing even remotely memorable. If there'd been any sign then that this night would explode the next morning, I didn't see it. We ate in the living room because we always ate in the living room. The dogs circled until the boxes were closed and put away. Then they gave up and sprawled around us like furry furniture. We started with a game we'd been working through together. It was one of those nights where everything clicked. We were talking over cutscenes, making stupid jokes, arguing over choices that didn't matter. No, 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 my sister said, grabbing her controller tighter. If you pick that option, he's absolutely going to betray us. He's not going to betray us. He has betrayal face. That is not a thing. It is a thing. He looks greasy. He looks tired. He looks guilty. You think everyone looks guilty. That's because most people are. I laughed so hard I nearly missed the next prompt. That was the thing about being around her. It was easy. It always had been. No strategy, no careful wording, just instinct. At some point we paused the game and switched to a show. I don't even remember whose idea it was. We do that sometimes when we hit a stopping point or got too tired to keep playing. Just throw something on and let the night wind down. The living room was dim except for the TV. One dog had wedged himself between us on the couch. The other was stretched out on the rug, snoring softly. The pizza smell still lingered in the room, mixed with that warm, sleepy heaviness that comes after a long day and too much food and a familiar voice nearby. We were talking through the first episode, then less, then not much at all. I remember one moment clearly, my sister saying something half-finished, her voice already slowing. I remember smiling without opening my eyes and mumbling, "You're falling asleep." She made some sleepy sound that could have meant no, or maybe, or shut up. And that was it. Nothing dramatic. No decision, no weirdness. Just sleep. When I woke up, the sky outside the windows had gone from black to gray. Early morning light was leaking around the curtains. The TV menu had replaced the show, cycling through the same silent screen over and over. For a second I just sat there, disoriented. Then my sister stirred, blinked at me and groaned. "Oh no." I rubbed my face. "What time is it?" She grabbed her phone, squinted. "Too late." I let out a breath through my nose. Damn. It wasn't panic, more like embarrassment. That low level, that's annoying feeling when something harmless still creates inconvenience. She sat up and stretched. I did not mean to crash. Me neither. One of the dogs lifted his head like he was offended we were moving. My sister scratched behind his ears. "You're the only one here who got exactly what he wanted." I stood up, my back cracking, and started gathering empty cans and napkins from the coffee table. "You want coffee before you go?" She shook her head. No, I should just head out. There was still no sense, in me at least, that this was anything more than a slightly awkward accident. I figured maybe my wife would be annoyed that my sister had stayed over unexpectedly. And honestly, that would have been fair. We hadn't planned it. I hadn't gone upstairs to mention it. I hadn't texted. I hadn't done anything to acknowledge that the night had changed from a visit into an accidental sleepover. That part, I already knew, was on me. I should have said something. I should have gone upstairs even late, even if it seemed minor, and let my wife know what happened. That was thoughtless. But thoughtless and inappropriate are not the same thing. My sister grabbed her things, slipped on her shoes, gave me a quick hug, and headed out. "Text me when you get home," I said. "I'm 36. And yet," she snorted. Yeah, then she was gone. The front door shut, and the second it did, the house changed. My wife was waiting in the kitchen. Not pacing, not yelling, just standing there with her arms folded, expression flat in that way that's somehow worse than obvious anger. I knew immediately. I had that cold drop in my stomach, that instinctive brace before impact. She looked at me for a long second before she spoke. "So," she said, "you thought that was okay?" I frowned. "What? That she stayed over?" I nodded once. "No, I mean, I know that part wasn't great. We fell asleep downstairs. I should have told you." Her jaw tightened. "You should have asked." I opened my mouth, then closed it, because there was no point arguing that. She was right. "You're right," I said. "I should have. It wasn't planned." But she didn't soften. If anything, she got colder. "And not just that," she said. "You fell asleep on the couch with another woman." I actually laughed, not because it was funny, because it was so absurd that for one stupid second my body reacted before my brain did. Then I saw her face. She wasn't joking, and the laugh died immediately. I stared at her. Another woman? Yes, my sister. She gave me this look like I was deliberately missing the point. "I know who she is." "Then what are we doing right now?" Her voice sharpened. "Don't do that." "Do what?" Act like this is completely normal. It is normal. No, it isn't. I felt something shift in me then. Not guilt, not defensiveness exactly. Something hotter. Offense. Real offense. Because being told I should have communicated better? Fair. Being told I had disrespected my marriage by accidentally sleeping on a couch next to my sister? That felt gross. It felt like she had taken something clean and dragged it through mud. I ran a hand over my face, trying to reset the conversation before it got away from us. Okay, look, I get being upset that she stayed over unexpectedly. I do. I should have said something. But the way you're framing this is insane. Insane? So I'm insane because I don't want my husband sleeping with another woman? I took a step back like she'd physically hit me. Sleeping with? I repeated. Do you hear yourself? You know what I mean. No, actually I don't. The dogs had gone still. They always knew. They could feel tension before either of us raised our voices. One of them got up and wandered into the other room. My wife uncrossed her arms. You can twist it however you want, but I walked downstairs this morning and saw my husband passed out on the couch with a woman who is not me. She is my sister, and she is still a woman. I just looked at her. There are moments in an argument where the actual words matter less than the fact that they were said at all. This was one of those moments. I could feel the conversation tipping somewhere ugly, somewhere neither of us would be able to undo. I kept my voice low, but it took effort. That is a disgusting thing to imply. I'm not implying anything. Yes, you are. No, I'm saying there should be boundaries. With my sister? With anyone. I threw my hands up. She is not anyone. She's not your wife. That landed hard. I stared at her, trying to decide whether she understood how bad that sounded. Inside my head, everything was moving fast. Anger, confusion, hurt. A kind of disbelief that made the room feel unreal. Was she actually jealous of my sister? Was this really happening? I thought maybe if I could just make her hear how absurd it was, the whole thing would collapse under its own weight, and we'd both step back from it. Instead, I said, if I had fallen asleep on the couch next to my brother, would you be saying this? She didn't answer right away, and that pause told me everything. I let out a sharp breath. Exactly. Her expression hardened. That's not the same. Why not? Because it's different. No, it's not. The only difference is that you're sexualizing something that is not sexual. I am not sexualizing it. Then what are you doing? I'm telling you that from where I stood, it looked wrong. I laughed again, bitter this time. From where you stood? What? Like I was sneaking around with my own sister? Stop saying it like that. How else am I supposed to say it? My voice had risen. Hers had too. The whole house felt tight now. Charged. She shook her head. You don't get to turn this around on me. I'm allowed to be uncomfortable. I didn't say you weren't. You're acting like I'm crazy for having feelings. No, I'm acting like you crossed a line. That hit. I saw it in her face, but I couldn't stop. Being upset that she stayed over? Fine. Being annoyed I didn't tell you? Fine. But accusing me of disrespecting you because I fell asleep on a couch next to my sister? That is beyond weird. She went very still. So now I'm weird. Yes. The second it left my mouth, I knew it was gasoline. Her eyes filled, not with sadness at first, but rage. The kind that comes when someone feels humiliated and decides to strike back instead of retreat. Unbelievable, she said quietly. I should have backed off. I should have. Instead, I doubled down because I was angry too, and anger loves righteousness. No, what's unbelievable is that I have to defend myself against something this gross. She pointed toward the living room. You brought another woman into our home and spent the night with her. My sister. You keep saying that like it erases how it looked. It should. It doesn't to me. That was the moment the conversation stopped being about what happened and became about what it meant. To me, it meant she didn't trust me. Worse, it meant she was willing to project something ugly onto one of the safest relationships in my life. To her, maybe it meant I didn't care enough to consider how it would feel from her side. Maybe it meant she saw me choosing what was comfortable for me over what was respectful to us, but in that moment, neither of us was hearing any of that. All I heard was accusation. All she heard was contempt. I said, I'm not apologizing for falling asleep next to my sister. Her face changed at that. Not dramatic, just small, shut down. Fine, she said. That one word did more damage than all the yelling. Fine. Not because it meant fine, because it meant the door had slammed shut. She turned and walked away before I could say anything else. Upstairs, slow, controlled steps. The kind you take when you are making yourself not run. I stood there in the kitchen, breathing hard, furious, still replaying her words in my head. Another woman. It kept echoing. Another woman. I wanted to punch a wall. I wanted to call someone. I wanted someone else to hear it and tell me I wasn't losing my mind. Instead, I cleaned the living room in silence. I folded the blanket, turned off the TV, picked up the empty pizza box. The whole time, my brain kept circling the same thought. She made it weird. She made something innocent weird. How am I supposed to just let that go? The rest of that day passed like a storm that never fully moved on. We barely spoke. If one of us entered a room, the other found a reason to leave. Every tiny household sound felt amplified. Cabinet doors, footsteps, water running in the sink. The dogs kept looking from one of us to the other, like they were waiting for the weather to break. It didn't. That night, lying in bed beside my wife with a gulf of silence between us, I stared at the ceiling and replayed the argument over and over. Part of me knew I had handled it badly, calling her weird, laughing, escalating. Part of me knew that, but every time I got close to admitting I should apologize, I'd hear her say it again, another woman, and my whole body would tense. The next day my sister texted me, "You alive?" I stared at the message for a while before answering. Barely. She called almost immediately. I stepped outside to take it. "Well," she said the second I answered, "that sounds ominous." I leaned against the porch railing and looked out at the yard. "She's pissed." There was a pause. "Because I stayed over?" "Yeah, but not just that." My sister was quiet for a beat. "What do you mean?" I almost didn't want to say it out loud. Saying it made it real in a way that text never could. She said I disrespected her by falling asleep with another woman. Silence. Then, "What?" "Yeah, my God." I rubbed at my forehead. "Exactly. She said that about me?" "Not directly, but yes." Another pause, longer this time. I could hear her shifting wherever she was, the rustle of fabric, the exhale she let out through her nose. She stopped. "That's really messed up. I know. I mean, I get her being annoyed I was there in the morning. That's fair. But that..." She sounded stunned now, and underneath it hurt. "That's gross." Hearing her say the exact word I'd been thinking made something tighten in my chest. "Yeah," I said quietly. She was quiet again, then asked, "How bad was the fight?" "Bad." "Are you guys talking?" "Not really." She sighed. "Mom's gonna tell you to apologize." I gave a humorless laugh. "You already know?" "She called me this morning because apparently she has a sixth sense for family tension." That actually got a small smile out of me. Then it faded. "Maybe I should have just gone home," my sister said. "No. I'm serious. I should have set an alarm or something." "It's not your fault." "I know, but still." I closed my eyes. "It's not your fault." And I meant it. Completely. That was part of what made me so angry. I hated that this had now touched her. That she was now dragged into something ugly and embarrassing because my wife had chosen to frame it in the worst possible way. After I hung up, I just stood there outside for a while, feeling the weight of all of it settle more heavily instead of less. Because now it wasn't just me and my wife. Now my sister knew. Now my mother knew. Now the thing had spread. And once a conflict leaves the room where it started, it changes. Harder to clean up. My mom called that evening. She didn't waste time. "Just apologize to your wife." I almost laughed from sheer predictability. For what? For upsetting her. I didn't do anything wrong. "You did something she didn't like." "That's not the same thing." "No, it isn't," she said. "But you're married and sometimes that means you apologize even when you don't think you're entirely wrong." I paced the kitchen while she talked, keeping my voice low so my wife wouldn't hear from the other room. "Mom, she basically implied something inappropriate about me and my sister." She was upset. "That doesn't make it okay." "No," my mother said, "it doesn't, but if what she saw made her uncomfortable, then maybe start there." I stopped pacing. Start there. I knew what she meant. She meant stop arguing intent and acknowledge impact. A very reasonable thing to say, a mature thing to say. And still, I resisted it instantly. Because every time I tried to imagine going to my wife and saying, "I'm sorry I made you uncomfortable," it felt like I was validating the ugliest part of what she said. Like I was agreeing that there had been something there to be uncomfortable about, beyond the simple fact that my sister stayed over unexpectedly. "I can apologize for not telling her," I said. "I can apologize for that. I should have. But I'm not apologizing for falling asleep with my sister like I did something shameful." My mother sighed. Then say exactly that. I didn't answer. Listen, she said more gently. Being right is not always the same thing as fixing your marriage. That stayed with me after we hung up. I hated that it stayed with me, because it sounded wise, and because I didn't know if it applied here, or if it was just one of those phrases people use to pressure you into swallowing something unfair for the sake of peace. The house felt unbearable by the second night. My wife and I still barely spoke. Every interaction was stripped down to logistics. Are you using the washer? No. Did you feed the dogs? Yes. Mail came. Okay. No warmth, no eye contact unless necessary, no attempt from either of us to bridge the gap. And under all of it, I could feel my anger cooling into something worse. Distance. The kind where you stop rehearsing what you want to say because part of you no longer believes saying it will help. On the third evening, I found her in the living room after dinner. She was sitting on one end of the couch, laptop open, not really looking at it. I stood in the doorway for a second, then walked in. We need to talk. She closed the laptop without a word. I stayed standing, she stayed sitting. Even that felt like a statement. I took a breath. I'm sorry I didn't tell you she stayed over. Her face gave nothing away. I should have come upstairs or texted you or something. I get why that upset you. Still nothing. I went on, more carefully now. But I need you to understand why what you said bothered me. That did it. Her mouth tightened. I told you why I said it. No, I said. You told me how it looked to you. You didn't acknowledge how messed up it was to frame it that way. She looked up at me then. So this is still about proving I'm wrong. It's about you acting like there was something inappropriate about me falling asleep next to my sister. She stood up so fast the laptop shifted on the cushion. I did not say you did something with her. You didn't have to. I said it crossed a boundary for me. Why? Because I came downstairs and found my husband asleep with someone else in our house. I stared at her. You keep doing it. Doing what? Using language that makes this sound sexual when it isn't. She threw her hands up. Not everything is about sex. Then what is it about? Respect. The word cracked through the room. Her chest was rising and falling hard now. Mine too. She took a step toward me. You know what hurt? It wasn't just seeing that. It was realizing it apparently didn't even occur to you that I might not be okay with it. That you didn't think to tell me. That you just decided what was normal and acceptable in our marriage without me. I opened my mouth, then paused. Because that was different. That was not what she had led with. That was not another woman. That was not implication and disgust. That was hurt. Real hurt. And for the first time since the fight started, I felt my certainty wobble. I didn't decide anything, I said, but softer now. We just fell asleep. I know that, she snapped. Then her voice broke a little on the next sentence. I know that. That hit me harder than the yelling had. She looked away from me, jaw tight, eyes bright now in a way they hadn't been before. I know she's your sister, she said. I know you weren't doing anything. But I woke up and came downstairs and saw that, and it felt awful. It felt like I was the outsider in my own marriage. Like there was this whole closeness there that didn't include me, and I was just supposed to be fine with whatever version of it showed up in my house. I stood very still. Something inside me shifted then. Not all the way, not enough to erase what she'd said, but enough to see a crack in the wall I'd built. Because underneath the accusation, there it was. Not suspicion. Exclusion, not jealousy in the way I'd framed it. Displacement. And suddenly I was replaying the whole thing through a different lens. The regular Wednesday nights, the fact that she never joined, the fact that I'd invited her, yes, but casually, assuming that was enough. The fact that I saw this ritual as harmless because it was mine, because it was old, because it came from before her in some emotional sense, even if not in time. Maybe she hadn't been imagining anything sexual. Maybe she had reached for the clumsiest, ugliest language possible because she felt shut out and humiliated and didn't know how to say that without sounding needy. Maybe both things were true. I swallowed. Why didn't you say that in the first place? She laughed bitterly and wiped under one eye before any tear could fall. Because you laughed at me. That landed clean and sharp. I looked down. She wasn't wrong. The first thing I had done when she tried to tell me she was uncomfortable was laugh in her face. Not because she was hurt, because I found the framing insulting. But once I laughed, she had no reason to get softer, only harder. I sat down slowly on the opposite end of the couch. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I said, I thought you were accusing me of something disgusting. She folded her arms, but less defensively now, more like she was holding herself together. I wasn't accusing you of wanting your sister, she said. Jesus, I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Then why say it like that? Because I was angry, she said. And because seeing you asleep together felt intimate in a way I wasn't prepared for. I rubbed my palms against my jeans. Intimate. That word was easier to hear than sexual. Harder in some ways too. Because she wasn't wrong. It was intimate. Not romantically, not inappropriately, but intimate in the literal sense of closeness, history, comfort, unconscious trust. The kind of intimacy siblings can have without ever questioning it because it's always been there. And if you're standing outside that kind of bond, maybe it can feel strange, maybe even threatening, not because it's sexual, but because it reminds you there are parts of your partner's emotional world you didn't build and can't fully enter. I looked at her. I still hate the way you said it. She nodded once. I know. And I need you to understand that hearing you call my sister another woman made me feel sick. Her face shifted. I know. I shouldn't have said it like that. The room went still. That was the first real step either of us had taken toward the other. I nodded slowly. Okay. She sat down again, this time not all the way across from me. Still with space, but not as much. I wasn't trying to make it sound incesty, she said, wincing at the word. Too late. I know. I almost smiled, but not quite. She looked down at her hands. I just felt stupid and left out, and then I got mad about feeling that way. I leaned back against the couch and stared at the dark TV screen. I should have told you, I said. Immediately, even if it was late, I should have said something. Yes, I know. And she added more tentatively now, maybe I should have been honest a long time ago that I don't love those nights as much as I pretend not to care. I turned to look at her. What? She gave a small embarrassed shrug, not because it's your sister, not because I think anything weird. I don't know. Sometimes it feels like there's this part of your life where I'm optional. I didn't know what to say to that, because I'd never meant to make her feel optional. But intention doesn't erase experience. In my head, those nights had always been simple, innocent, a good thing. I'd invited her before. She'd said no. I'd taken that no at face value and moved on. I had never asked a second question, never wondered if not interested actually meant I don't know how to fit into something that already feels established. Never wondered if my casual invitations felt more like politeness than real inclusion. And now, sitting there, I saw the whole thing differently. Not wrongly, but differently. The twist wasn't that my wife thought something sexual had happened. The twist was that I had been so offended by what I thought she meant that I never stopped to hear what she was actually trying badly to say, that she felt outside, that she felt like a guest in a ritual that mattered to me, that waking up and seeing the aftermath of that closeness all over the living room while she stood there alone had hit something deeper than I'd understood. I exhaled slowly. I don't want you to feel like that, I said. She nodded without looking at me. I know. No, I mean it. I really didn't know. I know that too. We sat in silence for a while after that. Not the sharp silence from before, a tired one, a bruised one. Eventually I said, I'm still not apologizing for falling asleep next to my sister like that part was wrong. She looked at me, and to my surprise gave the faintest nod. Okay, but I am sorry I didn't think about how it would feel to you, and I'm sorry I laughed, and I'm sorry I made you feel stupid for bringing it up. She swallowed. Thank you. Then after a beat, I'm sorry I said it the way I did. That was enough for the moment. Not a perfect ending. Not one of those movie scenes where everybody suddenly understands each other completely and the music swells and the conflict vanishes. Just enough. Enough to sit on the same couch without feeling like enemies. Enough to let one of the dogs climb up between us and force a truce with his full body weight. Enough to breathe again. Later that night, after we talked a little more, after some of the sharpest edges had worn down, I lay awake thinking about how quickly love can get tangled up in language. How one person says, "This hurt me," but says it badly, and the other person hears, "You're disgusting," and by the time either of them realizes the translation was wrong, damage has already been done. I still think she was wrong to phrase it the way she did. I still think there was something ugly in reducing my sister to another woman. That doesn't sit right with me. It probably never will. But I also know now that I was too focused on defending innocence to notice injury. I wanted to be right more than I wanted to understand, and that nearly made a bad morning into something much worse. The next Wednesday came and went without plans. My sister texted me a joke about setting 3 alarms next time. I stared at it for a while before answering. Then I looked over at my wife, who was reading on the other end of the couch, and wondered what the new version of normal was supposed to look like now. Because some boundaries are unreasonable, and some feelings are unreasonable but still real. And once both of those things are true at the same time, what exactly are you supposed to protect first? The principle or the person?